If everyone would rise for the pledge of allegiance, please.
To the flag which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome, everyone. Before I call the town council meeting of February 11th, 2025 to order, as the chair of this town council and the person responsible for navigating this evening in the next couple of hours smoothly, I would like to say that my goal for this evening is that everyone walk away from the conversation in this evening and every other town council meeting feeling seen, heard, valued, and respected. It is my responsibility to ensure that this entire body, the residents, the staff, and the council who is all here adhere to that. So with that said, I will call this meeting to order and we will get started. We have 5 councilors present. We have the town manager, our town clerk. Thank you all for being here this evening. I'll start with number 1, approval of the minutes from January 2025. Can I ask the council, do you guys have any edits? Oh, yes, Monique, thank you.
Can you make an announcement about signing up to speak?
Thank you very much for the reminder. Thank you, Monique. Yes, if anyone would like to speak on the agenda item later on, I imagine most people are here for unfinished business number 1. Please sign in over here. I will just be calling names as we go through it like typical public hearings. That's how I usually run things. Thanks, Monique. All right, approval of the minutes, any edits?
Just under approval minutes, on the last line there, says Councilor Minahan obtained, abstained. And then the only other comment that I had was on the public hearing minutes, under council.
Sorry, Bill, can we just stay on the meeting minutes first, and then we'll move to the public hearing minutes? Or you jump around? Oh, so I was just looking for edits for the council meeting at this point. Yes, please.
Under unfinished business on a motion by Chair Cook, seconded by Councilor Cole, it was voted 5-0 to enter into a 3-YAR. YAR is supposed to be year. And then down in the councilor comments, under Councilor James's comment, it says, there was no line today at 3 p.m. and the councilor transaction. Counselor is the wrong counselor and it should just whatever.
Great, thank you, Melissa. Any other edits to the town council meetings from from January 28th, 2025? I'll go ahead and make a motion to adopt the meeting minutes from our town council meeting on January 28th, 2025 as discussed.
Second.
Thank you. A motion and a second for any discussion. All those in favor, start with Jeff.
Aye.
Melissa.
Aye.
Bill.
Aye.
John.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. And now, Bill, what you got for the public hearing?
Time to shine. Under the councilors present, it has everybody, but it doesn't have me in there. So I have you included in that list. And other than that, I didn't see anything that needed to be added.
Great, thank you. Anyone else? Okay. I'll go ahead and make a motion to adopt the meeting minutes from the public hearing on Meadow Pond Road Phase 2 from January 28th, 2025 as discussed.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Jeff?
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you. Moving on to the signing of the treasurer's warrants. We have a treasurer's warrant dated February 5th, 2025 in the amount of $965,266.97. I'll go ahead and make a motion to sign the treasurer's warrant for February 5th, 2025. Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor, no, sorry, any discussion? No discussion. All those in favor say aye. Jeff?
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. Great, moving on to reports and presentations. Number 1, we have DeCarlo Brown here this evening to present to us our TIF funds credit enhancement agreement program. You would come up and introduce yourself and I will turn it over to you. Thank you, DeCarlo.
Just going to try this out just to make sure I'm at the right distance. Thank you guys for having me this evening. I am DeCarlo Brown, your your Director of Planning and Economic Development, and I'm here to talk about a potential program. It's not a program that exists yet, but it's a potential program, and it's a tool. That tool is a Credit Enhancement Agreement Program. It's one of the tools that you can use within your TIF district, your Tax Incremental Finance District. And particularly you can use it within your Punkintown TIF or your Omnibus Transit TIF. So if you go to the next slide, what led to create this proposal? So a previous economic developer began negotiations with a potential developer in attracting a particular business into town. And this was discussed as one of those tools. It's already a part of the things that you can do in your TIF agreement, but a program has never been set up. And this is a part of the tools that you can use either to attract new businesses, or you can also use this for when businesses are expanding public services like water services or sewer services on their own dime in order for them to create their own business there. So that's one of the reasons why I brought this before you, is that it'd be another tool in your kit, and you can choose to use it as you see fit. It's not something that staff can use. It's something that only you, the board, can use, because it's a contract between you and the new potential business owner or expanding business. So the applicant requested our office to review what has previously been done, and we're advocating on their behalf because this is something that they've discussed as a possibility, the previous economic developer. And they came in, they talked to me, and really wanted to know where we are in creating this program, or has a program being created. We looked into it, staff did, and along with Tim and Jen, and we thought, this is a good proposal to take before you all, because it's a tool that you can use down the line. And it's another tool to assist in new expanding businesses in town that does not directly impact taxpayers. The way it works is basically, if someone buys a raw piece of land, they are paying the taxes on that raw piece of land. Regardless, they get no anything off. If they choose to go into this agreement, then they improve that land to, say, $1 million worth of improvements, and then they pay taxes on that improvement. You can give them, during a limited time, you can give them pretty much a reimbursement of a portion of those taxes. And so it's an incentive to get them on their feet for a shorter time period, to get them to make sure that the business is going to be successful in the long run. It's not intended to be a tool to be used indefinitely. It's just something to help those businesses during those first few years that are usually the hardest years to get off of your feet. And so a credit enhancement agreement is a financial program used within a TIF district to give partial tax relief using TIF funds, as I just discussed. The CEA is a contract between the municipality and the developer or business. So it is a direct contract between you and that business for reimbursing taxes. And when a business creates a physical improvement, it reimburses a portion of the increased taxes to pay certain project costs. And those project costs are very specific to those agreements. You can't do anything that you want. It has to be very specific to the programs you set up. And so it doesn't become a situation where they're using it for some things that they're not supposed to. It's a direct contract. You know exactly what they're doing with the money and the funds to get there. As a reminder of TIFs, and credit enhancement agreement is only able to be used within a TIF district. And that's because of how it's set up and how the finances work for reimbursement. And so you're not taking tax funds from others. It's literally their own tax funds as a reimbursement program for themselves. TIF districts allow municipalities to provide financial assistance to local economic development projects and programs in a specific area. The whole reason you have a TIF is to invest, to get that tax base up and running. And then when the TIF no longer exists, then you're able to use those new areas to attract new businesses, and those businesses are already there. It becomes a revolving thing and reinvestment. And so you're investing now to start the economic engine. And then once that economic engine is up and running, it kind of moves itself. A TIF allows, next page.
Which slide do you want?
This one that's on the screen. All right. So a TIF allows municipalities to use the tax value of new investments on local projects without reducing state aid for education, municipal revenue sharing, and not increasing county taxes. And so this is a program that directly benefits you because you don't have to then account for those other funds as far as the state is concerned and federal are concerned. What is the purpose of a credit enhancement agreement? It is to create new jobs, to assist existing businesses, to retain jobs, create significant long-term employment, create or expand public infrastructure beyond projects, support an emerging business sector, introduce a unique or prestigious opportunity, improves the local economy, broadens the tax base, improves the blighted area, supports community projects, or creates public benefits for other workers and their businesses. And so if you are choosing to go into one of these agreements, it needs to do one of those things, in your opinion. And then next slide. So we're going to talk just really, really briefly on how it works. A business who is planning to invest in physical improvements applies to have a CEA. The applicant lays out the goals of the investment and explains how this investment will contribute to the goals of the town, as we just went over in the last slide. The town council decides on the general terms of the CEA. The contract is further negotiated with legal and then it's finalized. So our lawyers and their lawyers, they talk, it is a real contract, and then you finalize it. The applicant constructs the improvements, and then the applicant, and then they pay their taxes, and then there's returned a portion of those taxes generated by the completed improvement for the specified time period. And so all that is going to be set up into any contract that you do. It's not something that say, oh, everyone needs to be 5 years or everyone needs to be only 2 years, or you set the terms of that, which you think it's best for that specific contract. And so next slide. And so what are we proposing specifically for our program? And that's the creation of a CEA program for South Berwick, and it's tailored for our town, and setting general criteria for a CEA program. And next slide. And so what decisions do you need to make? The number one decision is this a tool that you would like to use? You do not have to use it, but if you would like to use it, you can set up the program and you could choose not to ever go into a contract with anybody. It's not zero-sum game here. And who would be eligible? So you need to decide specifically what type of businesses would be eligible. Is it new businesses? Is it expanding businesses? All those criteria. And what would be the application fee? And application fees usually, for any application fees, usually covers a staff time. And so it's making sure that you're not subsidizing someone going into a certain program. You do the same thing with any planning board applications or any type of applications. And then what other fees would need to be covered? Additional costs to the town. So every year you need to review these contracts to make sure that they're still operating in the terms that you have put forth, and we need to do analysis of that. And then how much tax reduction over what time horizon? So what type of relief would you like to give over what time period? And next slide. These are proposals. You don't need to actually decide on this tonight, but this is to give you an idea of what we're thinking about. And staff and myself, we're particularly targeting newly established businesses within South Berwick. So with a new business that's starting out within the last 3 years and is going to construct something, or current business constructing improvements in the amount of more than $1 million of valuation. And so those are the terms that you need to be doing an actual big expansion to go into one of these contracts. And next slide. Application and other fees. Application fees about $500. We look at other municipalities and the time it takes to actually put up these, and as far as staff time goes, and it's about the 500 range. And then all associated legal fees. So we're making sure that us as a town are not paying additional legal fees to our attorneys to set up a program that's going to benefit this new business owner or expanding business owner. And then an annual administration fee to cover public costs. What's normal is just a 1% of the CEA payment due to the applicant, and then has a bottom shelf of 250. So 250 a year coming from that reimbursement program. So we'll subtract that. Next slide. And then the amount returned to TIF properties. So this is no more than 75% of the additional value captured by the TIF. So this is of the actual what they're actually constructing, nothing of the base. And so that is actually the top of the line that you have in your current TIF agreement. You do not have to go that far. I'm just letting you know that this is like the top that's in your current TIF agreement. So town staff recommends not exceeding 50%. And you can go lower than that if you'd like, or you can go higher than that, but our recommendation is about 50%. No more than a total reimbursement of $50,000 unless extenuating circumstances exist. You're gonna have unique circumstances. And town staff directly says, recommends a yearly maximum of $10,000 and a total reimbursement limit of 50. So you go 10, 10, 10, 10, 10 for 5 years, you get to 50,000, you're up and running, things like that. In order, and to give you an idea of how much you would have to invest to get that maximum, I believe we did the math, and if you would have to go at 50%, you would have to invest about $1.2 million in order to get the maximum of that. So you have to go pretty far up in order to get that maximum. CEA terms lengths. The state of Maine statute allows for terms in between 1 and 30 years. Obviously, we're not requesting 30 years. As a general guideline, the terms of the CEA should not exceed 5. So I've talked a little bit about that to set them up. Next slide. And then really it's just next steps. First, you need to decide if this is a program tool you would like to have. If it is, you would schedule a public hearing to decide on the guidelines. And then if it goes to the public hearing and you like the guidelines and you vote to actually initiate that program, you can do it at the same time you're having, at the same meeting that you're having a public hearing. Then if it goes into play, then you would start negotiating with potential partners and legal representation on individual contracts. And then you would need to schedule a public hearing for each CEA that you go into. And so it's not something that staff can directly go into and anything's hidden. It's always going to be in the public sphere in any of these types of agreements. And that's it. I just wanted to know if there's any questions. I know there's a lot.
I'll go ahead and I'll call on people. My first question was, at the beginning, you were speaking about, the assumption is that the business must exist within one of the TIF districts.
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And so if I can just high level summarize what I understand the
Sure.
credit enhancement agreement?
Yes. Yeah.
To be, is that it's a way for, it's kind of a way to incentivize new business or business growth here in town. And we have our 2 TIF districts where we have money sitting to do exactly this type of work. Can you guys remind me when both TIF districts, I know there's like a 30-year window, how much time do we have left to spend the dollars sitting in those?
Sure. Pumpkin Town has 16 years to go. And then our transit oriented, I believe, has like 28 years.
Yep.
28 years ago.
Okay.
And then just a slight correction is that it wouldn't actually decrease anything that we're generating right now. The business itself would start generating, and then you would take a portion of that generating. And so it literally wouldn't even impact anything in your coffers for the TIF today or tomorrow.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Bill?
Thanks for the presentation, Carlo. In your previous experience, have you seen this put in place in other towns and it's been successful? Like, does the juice work, the squeeze? Is it something that businesses are really looking forward to or looking for in order to come here?
It's an extra. No one comes to a town or a city because they have a CEA. However, if they're choosing between 2 situations where, this may give them a little bit of relief or not, that comes into their calculations. And so it's a little bit helpful for them. So as you know, in any of the businesses that are starting up, you're hit with cost almost constantly. And so this is a little bit, it could be a little bit of reprieve from those. Yeah.
Any other questions? Done? Jeff?
So for the TIFs, with the 2 TIFs you mentioned, is their CEA program outlined and specified in each of them?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
and so I'm clear, we would make a program saying, we have a structure of the CEA.
Yes,
We'll do that. And then, because we have that, you can then use as, or we as a town can use as an incentive to be able to say, hey, come, we have this program. What are your needs, Mr. or Mrs.
Correct.
Business Owner? Come talk to you, and then you guys come to us and we work out a contract with their needs.
correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And these are just guidelines. You all have always the final say to go within the guidelines or above the guidelines. These are just guidelines to give some people an idea of what you feel the average might be.
Right.
Yeah.
And so this CEA program would actually be an ordinance, correct?
No, it's actually in your TIF agreement already. And so you legally have authorized the town to be able to do something like this. However, you need to actually set up a program in order to do it. Yeah.
Okay. So
Councilman, may I?
Yeah.
So when the voters approved the TIF and the council adopted the TIF, we did all the work. This is part of written in there. So now the TIF being in an existence and being approved by the taxpayers in its totality. And then every year in the warrant, it gives you the permission to spend money out of the TIF. That's how the CEA program exists now. So now you have to develop it first, but you prior to had authorized it, it's written in. So CEA programs are in every TIF program. That they're just part of them. That's in bigger cities. It's a huge attraction piece when you're talking about millions of dollars of companies and businesses to attract them to get to the Saco Industrial Park or to get to the stuff like that. So a little background is, but it's all approved and already, you just gotta develop it, that's it.
Yeah, to piggyback off of that, when you're hearing in much bigger cities that, hey, you know, this organization or this company is coming here because they have an agreement with the city or they're using a CEA. That's the attraction, that's a vehicle that they're using.
Great. No, thank you for the clarification, because it's like you talk about a program, we have to structure it and there's a whole process to it. Just, I don't know, it
Yeah.
feels like it's difficult but simple at the same time. And what do you think about, what are you envisioning the staff? Like when you say staff involvement, I think that's great, thinking about if we're gonna do this, that it's like a net zero for the town, basically, we're not spending anything. Is it outside of you and
Assessing,
assessing? Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
and sometimes with Jen's time as well. And just that time, it adds up very quickly. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because one of the things that I think about a lot is like our clerk
Mhm.
crew is, they have so many different things that I can't imagine what's being dumped on them just because they seem to be like that first face and wasn't sure how much was gonna be added to their
No.
workload.
Yeah, no, clerks wouldn't deal with this program at all. It'd be something that someone's coming in to talk to, like my office or Jen or Tim, and just starting that conversation, and then Tim and Jen would send them to me. And then we talk about like what seems appropriate and to get together a proposal. You know, my job is to help them organize their thoughts into proposal, and then we can talk about getting into each of the lawyers, and then the lawyers do their jobs. And then they would present to you what their terms are, and then I would do the same.
Councilman, and so with staff, the purpose behind the economic development planner, Jen, finance director, assessing, so forth. So you develop the program, you pass the program, you do the application, you approve those. Then a citizen comes in, or a business comes in, we streamline the process for you so that you're not here doing all this stuff as your part-time, we meet twice a month. So we streamline everything for you, we get it all done, we do all the pieces behind the scenes, DeCarlo helps them with the application, we get all the financials in order, all the stuff that you're going to need to go into executive session to negotiate the deal. We get it all streamlined, and then once that happens, we get it to assessing, to lawyers. We prepare all the documents behind the scenes for you, so when you get to the table, it's, excuse me, it's just, here it is.
Thank you,
You all set, Jeff?
I think so.
Melissa, you got anything?
No.
Okay.
Thank you, DeCarlo.
Yes. Thank you, Carlo.
Absolutely.
So just question, jumping ahead a little bit, we do have this on our agenda item later. If I look back at your slides, essentially what you're looking for from the council tonight is consensus as to whether or not this is something we would like to pursue or to create CEAs for
Yeah.
with interested parties.
Yes, correct. And if you would like to use this as a tool, and this is something that you would like to pursue, then to schedule a public hearing. And so I can get you all of the documents for that. And we can then talk about the terms and everything in a public setting.
So the next step would be us to schedule a public hearing?
Yes.
Is the next section, okay,
Yeah.
all right, thank you. Great, any other comments, questions from last chance? All right, thank you,
All
DeCarlo.
right, thanks.
All right, I'll just remind everybody, moving into the public comment section, if there is anybody in the room who'd like to speak on unfinished business number 1 in particular, feel free to sign in. We do have a smaller group, so I can also kind of play it by ear as we go too. But moving on to public comment, is there anyone here that would like to speak on anything that's not on the agenda later on, whether that's, I'll first open it up to Zoom. Is there anyone on Zoom that would like to speak about anything not on the agenda? Please raise your hand. Okay, anyone in the room would like to speak on anything not on the agenda? Okay, all right, unfinished business number 1, discussion of council questions presented to the town manager. At our last council meeting, I raised a series of questions in councilor comments, and there was consensus from the council that these be put on the agenda for this evening. Town staff has done their best to answer these questions to the best of their ability, so I will turn it over to Tim to weigh in on the answers to those questions. And let me just pause for a moment, and I want to kind of lay out how we're going to navigate this agenda item. I'm going to turn it over to Tim, who's going to brief us on the answers to those questions. My understanding, Tim, is I think you're going to pass it over to Lieutenant Stevens, who's going to speak to us from the police department. Once those questions are answered, the town council will each have an opportunity to weigh in. If we have additional questions or comments, each council will be given an opportunity to speak. Then I will open it up to the public. You all will have an opportunity to listen to the answers to the questions, our debate, and open it up to each of you. Each person will be given 3 minutes, 1 time. I ask that everyone be respectful and not disparage any counselors, individuals, anyone. And then after that public comment session, I'll give these counselors another opportunity to weigh in on what we hear from you all. All right, Tim, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So after the last meeting, I reached out to legal counsel, send them your questions. And I've heard back now on all of the answers that I have had. I did do a conference call with 2 attorneys at Bernstein and Scher to get some of the questions answered and get my answers. I have a more detailed response from the police lieutenant, which I'll let him read as we go through. So to your first question, it says Trump administration order on 12725. The half all federal grant programs, very
Tim,
unclear.
I'm sorry, that's supposed to read halt, but
What's that?
it's supposed to read halt, but it's just a typo on the.
Oh, okay. Anyway, so that question, could this have some impact on the work plan in Southborough? Could it impact streetlight project and so forth? So after much discussion with lawyers, here's their answer. Currently on hold per order of a federal judge in New York State, unsure. However, monies already appropriated by Congress are required to be funded with the exception of military aid to foreign countries. The question being asked is if the funds can be held up while under review, and they said this is a wait and see issue. That was their answer. So what responsibility does the Southborough Police Department have to entities outside of the town of Southborough? And then there's a follow-up question that says, in what circumstances is Southborough PD accountable to county, state, federal government, specifically ICE? So the Southborough Police Department and all members of the police department took a sworn oath to enforce and uphold all the laws of the United States Constitution, laws of the state of Maine, and the ordinances and regulations of the town of Southborough. They're required to act lawfully, duty to act. They have a duty to act by law to assist any and all law enforcement agencies requesting assistance from federal, state, county, as long as they are attempting to enforce a criminal act, crime, or investigation. End of discussion. It has to be a criminal act. They can't just call up and say, we want to go look in somebody's windows, it has to be a criminal act, it has to be a specific reason. The second part of your question, are there situations in which our PD can be deputized, whether by the governor or by the president? Is this a can or a must? So it turns out you're referring to a program called 287G, which is a federal statute program under U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement Delegation of Immigration Authority, Section 287G. From Phil Saucer's email today, I'm following up with a brief summary of the 287G program with U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Under that program, federal law authorizes ICE to delegate to local officers whose jurisdiction voluntarily participates. So I said to Phil, what does voluntarily participate mean? Means they have to have a sworn MOU, memorandum of understanding, between that local government, which would be the town of South Berwick, and ICE, okay, to enforce federal immigration law, including identification, arrest, and removal. There are 135 jurisdictions in 27 states that have one or two forms of a 287G MOU agreement with ICE. None of them are remained, they are mostly southern states. You can find a website with more information here, blah, blah, blah. Hope this is helpful, Phil Saucer. So the answer to that is no, they can't be under this particular program, no. That we would have to enter into an MOU with immigration. Again, this is not specifically say that if someone had committed a crime and they were chasing someone here, that they wouldn't participate as a law enforcement agency, which they're required to by the Constitution. So the answer, did you have a question?
I just want to point out, that what you just read to us is not included in our packet, it's something that came in earlier.
Right, I got this at 2:31 PM today.
Okay, thank you.
I-
So
yeah.
just so everyone knows, what Tim read is kind of later breaking news, and so it's not included. in our packet.
Yeah, I apologize, I didn't,
It's
I
okay.
got it at 2:31. Then question number 3, South Berwick PD recently purchased a drone. Can this drone be deployed for efforts run by agencies or entities outside the South Berwick PD? And I'm gonna let the lieutenant speak to that. What I will tell you is that along with the question about ICE, the South Berwick Police Department is an accredited agency through the state of Maine, through a law enforcement agency, which means all their policies are reviewed annually to make sure that they're accredited, including their policy on immigration and detention and profiling and racial profiling. They train on that every year. They have a policy on how it works and how it doesn't work and how to make sure that that's being handled. As far as with the drone policy that you passed, which is in your packet, is very restrictive. It has to have approval from an incident commander, a lieutenant, or the chief to come out of the box. It has to have, they have to document all the notes. They have to document the purpose of each deployment, the operator, the deployment, the duration of deployment, the results of deployment, whether a search warrant was sought by the agency, whether a search warrant was obtained, any other information deemed by the chief. And it says right in the policy, an officer shall not deploy the UAV to conduct surveillance on private citizens peacefully exercising their constitutional right of free speech and assembly. That's number 3. Number 4, partner with the school district. Essentially, the lawyer's answer is any communication between the police department and MSAD 35 may not be considered public for safety reasons. If the school wants to release information, they can. Operational policy between the police department and schools should remain private. Municipal government facilities may not be considered public for safety and security reasons, so the lawyer's recommendation was if that's something that you want to know, the school would let the school release it. Those are, Madam Chair and members of the council, that is about 3 hours worth of consultation with the attorneys to get these answers. I hope to provide you some information you're looking for, and at this point, I'd like to ask Lieutenant Stevens from South Berwick PD to come up and give his response to the question.
Good evening. For those who don't know me, I'm Scott Stevens. I'm a lieutenant with the South Berwick Police Department. So I think town manager kind of answered the majority of the questions. So do you want me to just go down the answers to all of my questions, or just do you have anything specific you want answered?
Just go ahead and read what you got there, so that it's on public record.
For all of these? Okay. So for question 2, if you want to read off the question, I don't have it written down.
No, go ahead.
Okay.
You're right.
So the Southburg Police Department will assist any local, county, state, and federal law enforcement agency with any crime they are lawfully investigating that in some way involves South Berwick. This may be through suspect, vehicle, property information, the collection of evidence, to the apprehension of the suspects. All officers have taken an oath to uphold the laws and the Constitution of the United States and the state of Maine. As for the question about South Berwick being accountable to other agencies, no, we are not accountable to any other agencies, but again, we will assist them with any lawful request if a crime has been committed and it in some way involves South Berwick. We do have a drone, which the board has approved. The department, which is state accredited, has a policy in place, which you all have for this drone. The drone just cannot be used at any time he decides to use it. He needs supervisor approval. We need to decide whether that, he tells us what the drone's for. We refer to our policy and decide whether that meets the criteria. The only pilot who we currently have is very knowledgeable with the laws that surround the use of the drone. And, you know, I don't know what to tell you that the drone is used for the purpose that it is used for.
Thank you.
Sure.
All right, I think from staff, you guys have given your full report on the questions. I'll turn it over and see if the council has anything they would like to add or ask at this point. Is there anyone who would like to go first? Any takers? Bill, do you have anything? Any questions, any comments?
I'll hold off until after.
Okay, John, anything now?
About these in general, no.
Jeff, anything at this point before we open to public comment?
No.
Okay, Melissa, anything? Same for me. I will go ahead and we'll start the public comment section for this item. Thank you.
Thank you.
Stephen.
Thank you for taking the time out, Lieutenant.
Before we go ahead and start, I just want to, we have received several emails on this topic. I'm not going to read any of them in detail, but I do want to read off the list of emails, and I will give the list of emails, sorry, the full content of emails to Monique so they can be included in the record. So over the past 2 weeks, we've received emails from the following individuals. I'm not going to attempt to summarize the emails in any way, shape, or form. I'm just going to list the names: Hannah Bolger, Hershey Hirschkopf, Ryan Crosby, Melanie Mers, Gabriel Irvin McDermott, Maya Srinivasan, Sarah Hubner, Lee Peak, Robin Sue Bernier, Colin Tamara Steinauer, Christy Woods, Nicole Tracy, Hope Murphy, another from Maya Srinivasan, Elizabeth Irvin McDermott, Brad Stowe, and Scott Landis. So we received many emails. I've got a stack here. From now, I will go ahead and stand my list and we'll get started if anyone who would like to speak. All right, we only have 2 takers. First, Tamara Steinauer. And just as a reminder, everybody will have 3 minutes.
19 Hill Drive. It's hard to comment without hearing your discussion. So that's my comment. I do have a question. It was 3 hours of legal consultation. How much did that cost?
I don't have the 3 hours of total project. I don't know I won't know the actual cost till the lawyer sends the bill, but it wasn't 3 hours just them. It was 3 hours working on the whole project for me.
So I guess I have no comment, but just a statement, then it would be interesting. What is the upshot from all of this? What's the outcome? So I guess that's the comment.
Yep. Up next, we have Julia Jones.
Good evening. So I echo
Sorry, could you state your name and
Oh.
address, please?
Julia Jones, 110 Pond Road. I echo the last comment. What is the actual outcome? Why are we concerned that ICE may come in and work with our police department. Why is that a concern in the town of South Berwick? Do we have an illegal alien problem here in South Berwick? Have we had illegal aliens before that have been arrested here in South Berwick? Or what is the end goal to this question? It was just odd that it came up at the last moment on the, at the last meeting. I heard it, but didn't get to see it. I heard it, on YouTube and, yeah, that was my overall question. Why are we so concerned about, illegal aliens here in South Berwick that ICE would have to come in? So, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak on this agenda item? Yes, please. I'm now done with my list, so I'm opening it up to any takers or not yet.
Madam Chair, thank you very much for your time. I just think it's refreshing that you're able to
Sorry,
have
please state your name and your address.
Rob Bernier, I live at,
I know
on
that-
Mountain
I know
Road,
that-
that's fine. I just wanted to say is I think it's kind of refreshing that somebody else can bring up a question and have it reviewed and actually see that everybody's gonna follow the law. That's all I really care about, is following the law. So I thank everybody for all their time.
Thank you. Any other takers in the room? Anyone on the phone, on Zoom that would like to say anything? Okay, all right, back to the council.
I have a couple. You referenced all the emails we received. I know I'm one of the counselors who reads all my emails. If I don't get back to you, I try not to answer back singly. I try to act as a council. So I will speak to the other councils prior to answering back if I do. So I'll apologize for not getting back to anybody. There was a couple things mentioned in there about setting policies concerning our police department. That, I just want to get this clear on the record, that is not the purview of the council to set policy for our police departments. We also took the same oath as our police department, that we will support the Constitution, obey the laws of the United States and the state of Maine. So if we put in place a policy that went into effect of anything that has been done so far in detective action, we'd be in violation of our oath. I take that very sacred and very seriously. I took it for my job. I've taken it in other places in life. That is not one that's held lightly. The political climate we're in is not great. Understanding there's a lot of questions.
That's not great.
I thank you. But we need to stay with what we need to stay with. We are a legislative body for this town. We can answer questions, but I really personally do not think we should spend time every town council meeting to talk about every executive order coming down from the federal government. We have no say in it. We have no buy-in. We're all along for the ride right now. You have options. We can vote. We can write to our congress people. Our state rep is on right now. I'm sure Ms. Roberts would love to hear from you if we have something, but again, thank you everybody for writing out, but we cannot write policy for our police department. Chief Ruger and that police department has the highest integrity. And I take it personally with the questions of, should we do this for our police department? I don't feel we need to do anything with our police department. We have one of the best, if not the best, in the state of Maine. That's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Anyone would like to go next? Bill, go ahead.
I think that the purpose of the questions was really to clarify at what level or what magnitude those executive orders at the federal level impact us here at the local level. I'm not sure that we're at the point now where we're looking to make any policy decisions, but it's good to have clarity in terms of what the left and right lanes are of the situation that we're dealing with. But I also think that it's important to make statements. I can't remember, it was probably 3 years ago or so where there was a statement from the council about decrying racist behavior and white supremacist groups, and for the same reason that that was important for the town council to do at that time, even though, you know, we don't have people on Main Street protesting and holding up hateful signs and spouting off hateful language, it's important to be solid in that and have solidarity in our community with that. And in the same way, when it comes to protecting our community and making sure that everyone feels safe and valued here, it is important to make statements, even if we're not setting policy necessarily, and, you know, we defer to the police department and what they are able to do. As a council, as a community, we can still make statements about what is important to us in our community. So I think for that purpose alone, this is an important discussion to have.
Thank you, Bill. Anything else? Fine.
That's not.
Okay, Jeff and Melissa, maybe. Go ahead, Jeff.
Thank you. I have a bunch of papers here, so sorry. I think, the questions, I think that's what we're here for. I think that we're elected to be here, to be asking the questions, about how our town runs. And if we're not asking questions, as I did 2 weeks ago about our auditor, it was not saying our auditor is not worthy of our business. It's not saying that we have something to hide and I want to find something. It's responsible leadership is how I look at it personally. So I think that the questions are very relevant, and I think it's a display of actually very responsible and admirable leadership for this town. And I do think that, same likewise, I have the utmost respect for our police. I don't have a lot of interactions with them, and I think that's a good thing for you guys to hear as a town council, right? But I do think that they are shining piece of our town. With that said, I do think that it's nice to know, because I have so much trust in them, I'm just like, yeah, they're doing their thing, it's all good, they're keeping us safe, I love it. And then these questions, you start peeling, it's like, oh, I didn't know about that. So I have a couple of questions. I don't want to put you on the spot, Lieutenant, but I had a couple of questions that I found, if you wouldn't mind if I asked you a couple.
That's it.
Awesome. I appreciate it. And if you don't have the details, I understand. I was looking through our charter, right? And looking through, and I saw, and looking at chapter 3 of our administrative code, it talks about the police. And one of those things, it talks about the number of regular policemen. And I'm a big definition person. I spend my time working, and then I'm watching the state too, and I'm looking at what the definitions are. What is the definition of a regular policeman? Because I didn't know there wasn't. I thought they're all just regular policemen. I didn't know.
I'm not really sure what you're referring to as a regular.
Excuse me, Matt.
Yeah.
Well, Lieutenant, they're asking between green pin, blue pin, and part-time and full-time.
Is that what you're referring to?
That's what the code and charter talks about.
Okay, so a green pin is what we refer to as one of our reserve or part-time officers. They have only received a certain amount of training.
Okay.
Whereas a blue pin has gone to the 18-week academy up at the state of Maine, up in Vassalboro, and they have obtained their full-time certification.
Okay.
The green pins are limited to what they can do. It's a very small window. They can't pursue cars, and they can't investigate fatal motor vehicle accidents. Those are the only two restrictions of a green pin, whereas a blue pin can do all of that.
Okay. And again, this might be. I understand that when you get to the actual law part, that's not necessarily where you're living. You're living in making sure that you're doing your job the best. But maybe Tim, you might be able to help with this. I guess my point that I'm trying to get to is in our ordinance, it talks about a number of regular policemen, special policemen, special fire policemen. And I don't know what those are. And this is one of the things that I think is a very beneficial thing, because we're having this conversation, and I'm like, oh, I never even really looked at that. So that's why I was hoping to get some clarity.
So, regular policeman is a blue pin certified, 18 weeks law enforcement academy certified. The special police is what they refer to. The code and charter, by the way, is 40 years outdated, which is why we're redoing it this year, so that's in the redo. But just keep in mind, when you look at that, 40 years has gone by with no updates. And that's the problem we have here, Councilman Minnihan. So a special policeman would be considered a part-time police officer who, as the lieutenant has spoken about, is green pin. And how many part-time officers do you have?
We have, that are technically, that we call them part-time, there are 3, 4, but out of those, I think, none of them are actually, green pins. These are all people who have either retired and have maintained their blue pins, so.
So they're part-time. So those that would be called special. Then the special fire police would be traffic. They would be deputized constables that could do traffic for the fire police, they were called fire police. They do traffic for the fire department on fire calls and assist the police department with traffic. So we don't have any.
Okay, all right. So I appreciate it, because as I further read the ordinance, it basically seems, it says special policemen shall have the powers vested in regular town policemen, and special policemen shall, however, serve only when and as specifically required by the police chief. And so that's why I was like, oh, I don't understand what the heck is happening.
Right,
It sounds
so
like-
they use so we have a labor contract that talks about how we fill overtime,
Yeah, oh, okay.
things like that, right? So we just can't, we can't just stick a part-time officer into a full-time officer's overtime spot. They can't just come in and show up and work, they have to get scheduled by the lieutenant or by the chief, so that's what it's kind of talking about. And so like the chief hires them, or puts them all on the schedule for Strawberry Festival, let's say. And then I don't know, you do the scheduling or is it down the side?
No, sergeants did schedule.
So I suspect what happens is when they have an opening, they try to fill one of the full-time guys, if the full-time guys can't get it, then they do one of the part-time position officers, if they can't fill it, I assume they do an order. And so it's, again, the codes, and which is why we're struggling, everything has to be interpreted through state statutes to our 40-year-old outdated code statutes that we use. But that's how it works in it. So that, it follows the same thing, everything's in place, it's just that's way outdated, which will get updated this year.
Yeah, and that's kind of the story of what we've been doing the last few years. So what you're telling me is that Chief Ruger can't tap me and say, I'm special, and I'm a special policeman.
He has the authority, he could ask you to assist something.
Mhm.
He could ask you, Jeff, stand here and stop the cars from coming just down the street, off the traffic. He has the authority, just like the fire chief has the authority. Any sworn law enforcement officer has authority in the statute by the state of Maine to invoke assistance from citizens when needed for the life, protection of life and property. Just like there's an old law in the books, the fire chief can blow up somebody's house next door to a house that's burning, so it don't spread. Now, I'm sure you would get pretty excited if, the camel stop blowing up people's houses next door to the ones that are on fire. But we don't do, there are a lot of old laws in the books, but again, and I certainly appreciate you asking to clear this up, but the police department does an A1 job running their organization, and police chief, police lieutenant, and sergeants do a great job.
No, and I appreciate that, and I
Thank you.
appreciate you being here for
Sure.
these questions. Because when people come to me and I'm just willy-nilly talking to people, I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Let's look up the ordinance, and then I look up the ordinance, like, I don't know what the heck that means, so that's why I wanna ask these questions,
Sure.
so I appreciate it,
You're
thank you. I think, Counselor James mentioned the oath that you take.
Mhm.
And I know our oath, is it the same oath?
It's the exact same.
Yes.
I didn't
Exact same
realize that. Huh, okay.
Mhm.
That's cool.
Exact
Same one you take for federal service.
I didn't realize that.
Yes, sir.
And that oath, by the way, is in our charter.
Yes, exactly, yep. Right, next. it was brought up about the MOU. Does the lack of an MOU, I don't know if it's for you, Lieutenant, or just in general. I guess, does the lack of an MOU mean that we don't have the obligation if called upon?
As long as it's in the performance of their duties, they have a duty to act. So if hypothetically, if a ATF agent approached the lieutenant and said, I think Jeff Minahan's keeping machine guns in his pants. I want you to spy on him.
No.
Lieutenant would say, no, is it, do you have a warrant, is there a crime, is something, has he done something? No, well, then we're not gonna participate. If ATF showed up and said, we have a criminal warrant to arrest Jeff Minahan because he's trafficking in illegal firearms, we want your help with the arrest, I mean, he has to help them. The act, a duty to act.
Sure.
They have a duty to act. Beyond that, a memorandum of understanding, the only ones who can implement a memorandum of understanding, the municipal officials of the town of South Berwick. You.
Right.
You don't, they can't do it. They can take it to you. But a memorandum of understanding is a mutual voluntarily agreement that says, we will do this if you ask, and we will do this if we ask, okay? That's not what this is. The only time, you know, again, if any agency shows up and says, hey, crime's been committed, we need to walk, if a federal agency showed up, correct me if I'm wrong, and said, we don't know of any crime being committed, but we think the council chair, Mallory Cook, goes walking in a field at night all by herself, and we want to put the drone up and spy on her, the answer would be
No.
no. On the other hand, they think she's running cocaine rings in the backfield of her house. They got a subpoena and a warrant and an arrest warrant.
Yes.
And they want to see if she walked in the field. Yes. A duty to act under the constitution of a crime has been committed or, enforce criminal law.
So I think I would personally, in my mind, and that's an open issue that the council needs to discuss more about whether or not to further look at the MOU potential or whatever, just like to flush that out a little bit better is what I would ask of the council.
My recommendation, Councilman Ian, if no one's ever asked, why would
we spend time on it?
Right, if no one's ever asked us, and I'm trying to think, we have mutual aid agreements, we have all those in place through county emergency management, state emergency management. If no one's ever approached us, and again, this stuff is not up here, this is more in the southern, this occurs a lot more in the southern.
Oh, yeah, no, I understand, and again, I think it goes back to my opening statement, is responsible leaders don't wait to be reactive on things. Responsible leaders are looking forward to the future as what potential issues could be and what is responsible to represent the people of the town. Maybe it's not even touching it, but it's responsible of the council to have the conversation in my eyes. Because I agree, I look and I say, maybe there's no problem at all, well, why even look at it, but it's in front of us now, so that's how I look at it. Lieutenant, you had mentioned, you had said, in some way involved the South Berwick.
Correct.
How loose is that? Like if someone says, oh, they're gonna drive through South Berwick, does that mean that, oh, that's gonna impact South Berwick and now we're involved, or is it more?
It depends on what, if they have intel that says, there's a certain car that drives through the downtown of South Berwick every morning at 4:30. We've been surveilling this particular vehicle. Can you see if this car goes through the downtown of South Berwick at 4:30 in the morning? And if we have an officer available, sure, we'll go out and check for you.
Sure. And
if we see the car, yep, there goes the car. And if that's all they want, that's all we'll do for them.
Okay. Fantastic.
Mhm.
I'm sure I'll have more, but that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, sure.
I appreciate it.
Thank you, Jeff. Melissa, do you have anything?
Not at this time.
Okay. I will just wrap things up. I would like to first say that these questions were raised at the last meeting because, I had heard from many people in this community, they were wondering the answers to these questions. And if my posing of these questions left the police department with any sense of lack of trust in the police department from me personally, I would like to apologize for that. That's not my intention. I think it was excellent that we had this conversation publicly because there are clearly a lot of people in this community that want to know the answers to these questions. And we have a duty as elected representatives of this community to entertain their questions and get the answers to those questions. So thank you, everybody, for the work that you put into those. I also feel as a town councilor, as an individual town councilor, a duty to stay abreast of what's happening in our country, and whether we like it or not, the issues at the national level are trickling down and have the potential to start to affect us here at the local level. And I think we have a responsibility as legislators to stay abreast of what those situations are, particularly from a financial perspective. I have a question on, I know all of the federal funding, that particular item is on hold with judges, but I know at our last meeting, our only real source of federal funding, keep me honest, is really FEMA storm stuff. And we've had a couple of big winter storms over the past couple of years, and I think Jenny had mentioned the potential of the holdup of that money due to that executive order. Do we know the situation with that? And I just want to ask specifically about the FEMA funding.
I do not have an update with the FEMA funding.
Okay.
FEMA, which is the state portion.
Yeah.
They have sent out an email that everything is still moving forward with that.
Great. Okay.
And the federal money has been obligated. That was done in the fall, so I would think that should be all set and moving forward.
And the other money we do have, I mentioned last meeting, we do get funding from the federal DOT through state DOT.
Yep.
So that comes that way as well.
Yes, so I think it's safe to say that any funding that really the town of Southborough receives outside of kind of our taxpayers is largely state funding, which then could potentially be impacted by federal funding. So I think it's important, especially for the council, to stay abreast of some of these issues. They may not impact our budget, but they certainly may impact the school board's budget, which then impacts us as the setting of the body that sets the tax rate. So I think that we should continue to stay abreast of what's happening at the national level. And if there are any potential impacts to this community, whether that be financially or otherwise, I think we have a duty to discuss it and to bring those issues to this conversation. Anyone else like to say anything else at this point?
Yes.
Go ahead, John.
So agreeing that we have to stay abreast of national events, I agree, and how it affects our town. We pay two people to our right, but that is their job. You too, yeah, the town manager, the assistant town manager, their job is to look at, and DeCarlo with what affects us downtown. Anything with grant funding, anything with funding coming from the federal government, anything that comes down in orders, they're going to tell us. That's their job. I understand the questions came from constituents. I applaud you for bringing them forward. That's what we do. However, the amount of time Tim spent, the police department spent to answer some of the questions that were already there, i.e. the drone, bothers me that we spent that much time answering questions that we already had. We had a public hearing on the drones. We had everything out there. We could have done our research as a council and not tied up Tim and not tied up anybody else and presented that back. So in the future, when we get questions, get them out to the full council. If we can do that research on our own that we already have and save these two their efforts. Again, anything I know financial, Tim and Jen have been on it since they've been here, letting us know. So stay on top of it. We should bring it to them. And then we can brief it in his town manager's report, like he's always done. So that's, again, I want to stay on top of it, but I'm going to trust in our, two hires to our right.
That's all I have. I have one tonight,
Yes.
an update for later.
All right, any other suggestions or comments on this topic?
Question?
Yes,
It's been brought up, I remember when the drone, policy came in front of us. I don't understand, I don't remember why the drone policy came in front of us.
because we purchased the drone.
It's required by FAA, it's required, because it's a municipal agency, it's gonna be used for law enforcement purposes, to make sure that it's protected purposes of law enforcement crimes only. It had to have a certified policy through you, be approved by you, then send that to the FAA, because the FAA regulates municipal drones
Okay,
through the state.
because I know they have other policies, but those didn't come in front of us, so I was like, what was different?
It was the purchase and the FAA.
FAA requires it to come in front of you. Police department policies are made by, that's why we have the police chief, police lieutenant. They make their policies, just like the fire department makes their policies, and I make any.
The last thing I'll say is that I think I think we can all agree that there is at least uncertainty at this point in time. And our residents have questions and if they come to, I will speak for myself, if I hear residents with questions, I'm going to bring them to this body. And we can discuss how we would like those questions to be answered, whether we take on that responsibility or we hand it over to the town manager's office. But that will continue to be a practice that I employ in this council. All right, we can go.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt.
Mhm.
I need the question answered of, with every new administration, there is uncertainty, so why now? Why with this particular new administration? In every new administration, so what, I feel like we are tap dancing on partisan discussions and policies, and I'm not comfortable with doing that as my oath as a town councilor.
I've been on the council for 7.5 years, and I've never heard from so many residents with questions like this with previous administrations. Questions were posed. We have 17 emails from people. We have folks here today. I know on all sides of this argument, questions were raised, and I had a duty to ask those questions. I never got the questions from previous administrations. All right, we can go ahead. Anything else on this one? Jeff, go ahead.
I guess anybody in the council, where is it prohibited, for a counselor to have a political affiliation?
As far as I know, that is not written anywhere. I think that has largely been a courtesy function of how this town council is operated. And I will just also say that I think the town of South Berwick and many municipalities like it have been able to kind of hide from a lot of the division that's been happening in our country over the years, because it hasn't affected us. It hasn't made it down to the local level. And that has been wonderful, I think, for all of us, because it hasn't forced us to put ourselves in uncomfortable positions as leaders of this community. Clearly, because these questions have been raised by residents, these topics have made it to the door of South Berwick, and we have a duty to entertain those and answer those questions. And whether we like it or not, this is what is happening. And I think we, as a council, maybe need to get comfortable with being uncomfortable talking about some of these topics. All right, let's move on to unfinished business number 2, downtown revitalization and comprehensive plan committee members.
Madam Chair, could we also make a motion to move DeCarlo's section up so he doesn't have to maybe hang around anymore longer than he has to? And then we have a long day and I mean,
Absolutely, make motion.
motion to, well, did you already enter into the agenda item?
No, we're good. Go ahead.
Motion to move new business number 2, the discussion action of the TIF credit enhancement agreement program up before the discussion of the downtown revitalization and comprehensive plan members.
Thank you. All those in favor of the motion to move new business number 2 up, into the agenda after unfinished business number 1, say aye. Bill?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. So now we will jump to discussion action on the TIF credit enhancement agreement program. To bring us back to our earlier conversation that I posed to you, DeCarlo, the next order of business for the council, correct me if I'm wrong, is for us to, if this is something that we would like to entertain, for us to schedule a public hearing, correct? Great. Ken, go ahead.
So, Madam Chairman, Council, I have to make you aware that, some time ago, with the previous economic community developer, there were some promises made to business in town that's looking to get this application in. And they have been waiting patiently for 1.5 years, asking questions, what's going on with this? We were told they did come here, they did relocate a business, they are in wings, they've been in good faith. They built a brand new building in Pumpkin Town on a lot of promises made. And, so this, he came in and was very upset that he'd been told a bunch of things and nothing had occurred. And I'm not saying that you have to do one or the other or anything with this program. I'm just saying that the result is there's a citizen out here who moved his business here, built a business here, was told that this was gonna happen. This is one of the reasons he came here specifically, by the previous economic community developer. So he's waiting patiently for us.
Okay, thank you for that, Tim. All right, does anyone have any questions or discussion on this item? I know the action is that we ultimately need to schedule a public hearing, but I think we kind of need to have a little bit of a discussion on whether or not, just as a council, we're on board with the credit enhancement agreement program. I think we need to kind of talk about it from like a overall perspective, not pertaining to specifically to this one applicant, but it's important for us to know that's in the back of our heads. I can start. Does anybody else have any thoughts on this they want to start with? I think that the credit enhancement agreement program, it seems like this is exactly, this is a great opportunity for us to incentivize people to come into these TIF districts to build business here, which is something that is part of our comprehensive plan, part of our long-term plan for South Berwick, and kind of given the fact that there's no real financial implication really to the town at all with this, other than some administrative fees. I think that we absolutely should kind of take this on a case-by-case basis as people are interested. Anyone else have thoughts?
Yeah, I think that it doesn't seem like there's any real drawback other than some administrative time, which is covered under the fees, so there, like you said, there's no real impact to the town. If this is what sways a business decision to be here versus anywhere else, I think it's worth having that option available.
Anyone else?
I'm excited about it. I think it falls, very close in line with the discussions we had at the workshop we had with DeCarlo. So I'm excited about that. The individual that you mentioned, Tim, I mean, I feel bad about the situation, but I want it clear for me is like with economic development, this type of stuff, has been things I've been talking about for a while. And so I'm excited about it. I think it makes a lot of sense. I'd like to have more, deeper discussions about the structure of it, because that interests me, how it can potentially look for some potential businesses that could really help maybe potentially ease tax burden and or get people employed in town. So I think it's really exciting. I think it's amazing to have a mind like DeCarlo's here to be thinking and putting it in front of us. So I appreciate your initiative in getting this in front of us.
I just wanted to say that I like that it's a, case, it's a case by case, with all of the applicants. And that will allow us to see, yes, we'll give your business an incentive, but what are you gonna bring to the town of South Berwick? So, with it not being like an ordinance or a policy that it pertains the same to everybody, and it is on a case by case, then I would be, totally on board with, learning more about this and, doing a public hearing and moving forward with it.
Thank you. Okay, so, I will go ahead and, before I make the motion, I want to have some conversation about when would be a good time for us to have this public hearing. Does staff have any recommendations for when we should schedule
Next
this?
meeting.
Next meeting, okay. All right, so I will go ahead and make a motion to schedule a public hearing for the credit enhancement agreement program on February 25th at 6:30 PM here, Town Hall, 3rd floor, ahead of our regular council meeting.
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor of scheduling the public hearing for the credit enhancement agreement program, say aye. Jeff?
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you, DeCarlo, for being here tonight. Thank you for presenting. Thank you for all your hard work on all of this. All right, now I will get back to our regular agenda. Unfinished business number 2, downtown revitalization and comprehensive plan committee members. To set some context, the council is looking to form 2 ad hoc committees for the comprehensive plan implementation as well as downtown revitalization. We posted these applications end of 2024-ish, and kept the application open a little bit longer. I'm trying to find the list of applicants real quick. It looks like we have received 5 applications total for the downtown revitalization committee and 1 for the comprehensive plan committee. I think the next step for us will be to set a time and date to hold interviews for both of those committees. Looks like we would have 6 people total. We are also heading into March. Much of March is going to be budget focused for us. I would think we would want to try to do this soon before March, or
Yeah, I would, probably in the February, maybe the.
I am going to maybe suggest perhaps like we could try for like next Wednesday or Thursday, the 19th or the 20th, or the 26th and 27th, an off night for the council. Open to suggestions here, though, too. Anyone?
Next week,
Oh, it's big school vacation next week. Fair. Okay, let's aim, if we could, to try to schedule everyone, if we can, as much as possible in one evening on, I'm gonna say Thursday, February 27th. Does that work for everybody, the council? Okay. So, if staff could work with the applicants, I'll read out their names in a moment. Staff could work their applicants to have them join us here at Town Hall on February 27th for interviews starting, how early would everyone like to start? I would like to go earlier always if we can, but start as early as like 5 o'clock, what works for people.
well, how long were the interviews for the first round?
I don't remember how we've done these. We've kind of done like group interviews in the past. We've done individual interviews. I would think no more than like 15 minutes per person. I mean, so if we have 6, if we plan loosely 2 hours, I think we probably wouldn't need all of that from like starting at 6 o'clock on Thursday night.
Yeah.
Okay. Do we need a motion for this? Okay, I'll go ahead and make a motion to ask town staff to work with the applicants for the downtown revitalization and comprehensive plan committee. Those names are, we have Maya Srinivasan, Tamara Steinauer, Dan Boyle, Edward Flanagan, Roxanne Poulin, and Daniel Kenny. I think that's everyone. To schedule all 6 of those if possible for Thursday, February 27th between 6 and 8 p.m. And then if we need to reschedule other ones, we can. I have a motion. Can I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. We have motion and second. Any other discussion? All those in favor of interviewing applicants for the downtown revitalization and comprehensive plan on February 27th at 6:00 PM, say aye. Bill?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Melissa? Aye. Aye. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you. Moving on to new business number 1, liquor license renewal for Fogarty's Restaurants.
Madam Chair, I move we accept the new liquor license for Fogarty's Restaurant, their business in good standing, had no issue at all. Great place to eat.
I will second that. Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion to renew the liquor license for Fogarty's? All those in favor of the motion say aye. Jeff?
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
John? Aye. Motion passes 5-0. And then up next, new business number 3, schedule a public hearing for the transit TIF district. We already did this.
Nope, different.
This is a different public hearing?
I'll jump in, please.
Thank you.
When the transit TIF district was created, there's been a new law that's come into place since then, which would allow us to use TIF dollars to put towards 50% of the bond payment for the renovation of town hall. So we just need to have an amendment to the TIF district to allow us to be able to use those dollars to put towards the bond payment to reduce the tax burden of the residents. So we need to have a public hearing to
Update
enable that, to
amendment,
make that
yeah.
amendment. And the amendment and all the package is attached by the lawyers.
Great, thank you for the context, Jen, I forgot about this one. All right, so we need to schedule a public hearing. Is there a particular timeline in which we need to adhere to for this? Should we do this at the beginning of our next meeting as well? Okay. All right, I will go ahead and make a motion to schedule a public hearing. Schedule a public hearing on Tuesday, February 25th at 6:30 PM for the transit TIF district amendments to be held here at Town Hall. And let me just change that to say 6:35 PM or immediately after the previous public hearing.
Immediately after.
Immediately following the previous public hearing. Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of scheduling the public hearing for the transit TIF district on February 25th, say aye. Bill?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. All right, that takes care of all of our council business. Thank you, everyone. I'll hand it to Jen and Tim to give us their town manager's report.
I'm going to ask DeCarlo to come forward. We got some exciting news this afternoon about the traffic light project, so I'm gonna ask DeCarlo to share that to you folks.
Try.
I know.
I know he had to say it.
Yeah, I already knew I had to say, but thank you so much for trying to move me up. So basically, in the intersection project, we all know that basically it's an MDOT project that we pay our fair share of. And initially, we knew the scope of that project. It goes into 3 phases. The first phase is planning. They come in, they do a whole planning activity of getting people what you would like and everything like that. The second portion is the initial engineering scope of going like, okay, this is where things are located, and this is how we can place things physically place things on the street. And then the third portion is the completion of the engineering and actual construction of the project. Right now, we're in phase 2 of that preliminary engineering. And as a part of that, when I was hired, one of the first things that I was asked to do is go, listen, we have this intersection project, but we wanted to do additional stuff and we need to see how we can get it into this project, basically. One of the things, and one of the big concerns about businesses downtown was lighting, pedestrian lighting, so people feel safe right, if you look outside right now, so they can go to the businesses from the parking areas to where the businesses are so they can stay open. We know that that's important, especially during the winter months when it's dark at 4 or 5 o'clock PM. And because of that, I started contacting MDOT about, how can we get this into this project? understanding that it's gonna be additional cost to ourselves, but it's so important that we would save money if we're doing it at the same time. And talking with them in our last meeting, during January, and bring up the ornamental decorative lighting, they actually brought up that it will be included into this project. And so instead of eating the entire cost of actually installing the decorative lighting, we just would need to pay the share, our fair share of that project. So it then again reduces the cost in order to do that. And that's what we're looking for. And our department is clever ways that we can save money and also continue to make our town the best it can be. One of the initial things that everyone, when I said that on the meeting, is that we had to get that in writing. And so we just got that in writing today, that would be included into the scope. Now that talk of ornamental and decorative lighting doesn't come into phase 3, but now they know that this is what we want, and we have in writing that we're expecting to have that as a part of our project. So we just wanted to share that piece of news with
And we
you.
are in phase 2, so the project's moving forward.
Correct.
Next step, we'll hopefully get to phase 3 next year, or this year. And myself and DeCal talked about when, I'm gonna push some to Colin's office, where she's chair of the appropriations committee, so I have it in with her. We're hoping that it'll get funded in the next federal budget, which should start in October, which will mean possibly construction or final design construction in either 26 or early 27. So the project's moving forward. We now have decorative lighting for the downtown village area, so that'll be really nice. I want to thank Kyle for his hard work on this. He jumped in. I was super excited. This is really good news for us, our community. This is something we'll leave our community for 50 years. And cost taxpayers a lot less by doing it this way.
I just want to kind of restate what this project includes. So just so all the public is aware. So this is a project that we're working on with MDOT where it's a 10% match program, correct? Where the Southburg will be on point for 10% of the total cost of the project. The project will include now 3 traffic lights. Is that correct now? So
No,
No,
this project is 2 traffic lights. Yes,
okay,
yeah,
it's still just the one at Portland and Main and 236.
correct.
However,
There's a separate
there's a
project.
separate project
Yes.
for a light at the high school.
Correct.
So the scope of this project is 2 traffic lights, kind of reworking the roads accordingly. And then now, thanks to DeCarlo and
Yeah.
work he's done, now also will include the decorative street lighting. And then there's a separate kind of funding, separate process for a light at the high school.
Correct.
Yes,
Great.
correct.
A lot moving. There's a lot of moving pieces and we're getting a lot done. And I want to remind members of the public, the council, remember 17 traffic studies that cost us well over $300,000 over the last 25 years. We're now getting it done.
Great news. Thank you, DeCarlo. Thank you, Tim.
Thank you.
Thank you to Gal.
Now you can go.
Now you can go. Thanks.
For the highway department, they used 1,480 tons of salt so far this year. They're on budget. The total budget for the year is 3,000 tons. Police department had 2 arrests, 9 accidents, 89 traffic stops. Fire department had 16 calls in the last 2 weeks. On Saturday, we had on February 1st, Fire department gathered at Spring Hill for their first annual awards banquet, as we said we would have. They received some very nice awards, shed some tears, had a lot of smiles. Over 80 people attended that banquet. So just like we had said we were going to do, we held a separate banquet for that. And I want to thank Chief Hamill for all his hard work he put into that. Code enforcement, they've had issued 4 building permits, 3 plumbing permits, 14 inspections. They got 4 violations. 1 has been transferred to legal, 2 are on their final notices, and 1 is new. Planning and economic development, planning boards received 1 application for review. It's for review of enlargement of an accessory structure, shoreline zoning. Pumpkin Town Main Community Energy Redevelopment Program has offered free initial infrastructure planning and master planning services for the Pumpkin Town area. The organization has sent a draft MOU to staff, to Carlo, but we're waiting for confirmation of transmission distribution capacity prior to scheduling additional meetings. Transfer station. We're utilizing one container for MSW right now. A week from, we're utilizing one container for MSW. So what's happened is we were transporting our containers too often actually empty. So we now changed the policy so that they're going out fuller with more capacity, so it costs less to do that. Cost is the same, but if we do less trips and more, we're better off. But
At the library on February 14th, Danielle Moore Quintet Jazz Ensemble will be having a concert at the library starting at 6 p.m. The new shelving unit was installed last Monday to help organize and make more room for the DVD collection in the children's area. Recreation, Patter House had almost 500 people between Friday and Sunday this weekend. On Sunday, they had a record sales day of 262 tickets throughout the whole day. The ice rink has gotten a lot of use this year. We haven't been able to put it up for many years, so people are taking advantage of that. And they had a very successful gun stock trip. They tried a new bus company and they're very pleased with them and they're hoping to use them more going forward. Seniors, last Wednesday, York Hospital ran a lunch and learn where they had about 60 seniors join them and it was about heart health. And they received a lot of positive feedback on this. And they are doing a Valentine's Day luncheon on Wednesday the 12th. Tuber Jackson will be providing the music entertainment that day. In assessing, KRT will be coming back to visit the commercial properties. That's the only piece they have left. And Verna is working on 2 value appeals, the abatement and supplemental report we have for you. If you want to take one and pass it down. The clerk's office, they had 2 marriage licenses the last 2 weeks, and the official deadline for registering dogs has now passed. You can still do it, obviously. Late fee of $25 will be assessed. In my area, 2 business meetings, 13 staff meetings. The workman's comp audit was submitted to Maine Municipal last week. The survey for 2024 for occupational injuries and illnesses was completed and submitted to the Department of Labor. The tax reminder notices will be sent out between February 14th and 18th. The shades were installed in the new planning office in DeCarlo's office here on the 3rd floor. And we have started the second round of budget meetings with all the department heads who have the larger budgets and the bigger CIP accounts. We're doing round 2 with them starting this week. And I am still working on planning the verbal judo class that we're going to be holding on March 18th at the community center. So if anyone else wants to sign up, Valerie, I have you on the list.
Okay.
Any of the council members want to? Let me know.
For my area, I have 13 business meetings, 32 staff meetings. I attended the South Berwick Fire Department Awards banquet where I presented them with an award of appreciation for their 158 years of service to the town. And it was from myself and you, the council as well. So you were recognized there, though you weren't there. On Saturday morning at 10:30 a.m., the fire department received a call for a child whose leg was caught in a snowblower. They arrived and he was actually, the leg was in the auger. The kids were playing in front of, well, the father was snowblowing and the kids were running back and forth with the snow, catching the snow and blowing the snow. The kid slipped and fell and his leg went right into the auger. Fire department worked quickly using the jaws to extricate him, get him out. Ambulance took him to the hospital and good news was he was discharged with just minor injuries. So kudos to the fire department for a great job there. Meeting with businesses, I met with business, myself and Jen, to talk about the credit enhancement program and potential how that would work. I had a visitation, we did an on-site visit with Win Waste last Wednesday at the transfer station to review their operations, hauling, how that would work. Myself, Jay, attended that, did that. 6 budget workshops, working on 3 personnel matters. I reached out to Tyler Barter from Oak Point Associates with the question of, with the potential of tariffs on steel and metal, as well as tariffs on wood coming out of Canada, what is the potential cost increase due to tariffs, and how could that affect our town hall project? That could have a real bearing effect on it. You know, don't know, but I wanna ask that question early as we start planning. We have so much in the, you know, in the kitty for contingency, but is that gonna be enough at this point? Do we have that? So we got the Main Street streetlight update from DeCarlo, we got that. And dealing again with one legal court issue in court that I can't discuss with you here, and have to discuss in executive session. That's my report, Madam Chair. Anything else?
Yep.
Any questions from the council?
Question, was there any, additional information you needed to share with us on what you handed out for the abatement?
So that's just a total list of, so annually for the previous year, that's previous year abatement report,
Okay.
that's all it is.
Okay,
It's
thank
just,
you.
so the assessor is required by statute of law once a year to give you, after she closes out the 24, or that year. She closes that out, hers is coming up April 1st. So that's her report.
Okay.
That's all it is.
Okay, thank you. Council, does anyone have any questions for the manager? Okay, what would you say? Oh, sorry, John.
Just a clarification, the exciting stuff that was going on with, DeCarlo, you said you had a MOU or something was going on there. Are we gonna be hearing more about that in the future, or is that just gonna happen?
That's an operational MOU. That's just a thing for him to do an agreement to work with this agency to get a scope of services out of Pumpkin Town. If it's anything more than that, then it'll come to you, yeah.
All right, we'll move to councilmember comments. Jeff, if you can just keep the mic on if you got anything.
I don't think I have anything, actually, just, again, appreciate the conversation today. Thank you.
Melissa, anything?
Nothing tonight.
Bill?
Two quick things. One, took the family to high school over the weekend to see the Rock of Ages play / musical that was put on by the Marshall Middle School, and they were absolutely phenomenal. If you didn't get a chance to watch it, so it's too bad, they did awesome. And then second is just, I feel like I say this every time, but kudos to your team. I came in to register my car, there was a long line, and Jen, the code enforcement officer, jumped in and you know, she's not spun up on everything, but she was able to jump in and help out, and just kind of showed the versatility and the willingness for everyone to kind of step up and help out, so I really appreciate that, thank you.
Nothing other than I will be making a motion when we get out of here to go into executive session.
I would just like to, one, applaud the Public Works Department for dealing with all of the crazy snow we have had over the past couple of weeks. And would just like to remind the community that we do have a number of areas in town that do have a winter storm ban. If everyone can try to avoid parking on the street, the community center, the library, any of our town lots, especially during these winter storms, it would help our Public Works Department and our Police Department out a whole lot. So thank you, everyone. John?
Madam Chair, I move we go into executive session subject to 1 MSRA 406A personnel.
I'll second that motion. All those in favor of going into executive session, say aye. Jeff?
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. For everyone else, you're welcome to leave. We will wrap up the meeting and adjourn once we wrap up the council launch.